Welcome to another exciting episode of CarSmarts Radio. My name is Steve Saffier. Today we're talking with Rudy Samsel, the creator of GuysWithRidescom. Been pushing it for a couple of days, so I hope you've had a chance to go on his site. It's more of an online community, and it's really good. Welcome to the show, Rudy.
Steve, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Before we get into the website itself, I want to learn a little bit about you. Tell me about yourself, where you're from, and how you got into cars.
Sure. So, originally from Buffalo, New York, and grew up. My first word, my mom will tell you, was car.
Ah.
And well, most kids had a teddy bear. I had a metal Ertl dump truck that I used to sleep with. So that probably explains a lot in its own right. But just ever since I was a kid, I could name cars going around and identifying in that way. And I've just been a car nut ever since.
I read in your bio that you're sort of a car guru. You were considered sort of a guru back then. You could identify, you knew all the specs.
Yeah, so it made it a little bit easier back in the day when cars changed every year. But, just learning how the taillights changed and what engines changed. Just always kept up on that. And for whatever reason, because I would constantly read, I would keep it in the back of my head and just have that memory. I
think car ID is a little like bird watching. Like there's so many varieties and stuff, and different plumages at different times of the year. The car guys are a little like birders.
I think you're right on that one.
What was your first car?
So that was a 1974 Pontiac Ventura that I bought for $150 from my uncle. So if you remember back in the 70s, cars, particularly in Western New York, did not do well and tended to rot out. So.
They still do.
They still do. Yeah, it's kind of scary. But that car had the 250 cubic inch straight six, so it was not a barn burner by anything. But it got me around, and so it was a good little car to get started.
Now, there's no shortage of automotive websites on the internet, and yours stands out to me. And tell our listeners what makes GuysWithRidescom a little different than most sites.
Sure. So we wanted to create an oasis where we just have car content that is about the drivers themselves. And when I say drivers, it's really caretakers. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like ourselves with our cars, we feel that we're the current caretakers for the car, and it's part of the car's journey that we're having fun with the car, maintaining the cars, and the passion that goes around that. So we have a section on there, for example, called Guys with Their Rides, where as we go to these various car shows, we're interviewing them and getting, invariably when we go to the car show, as I'm sure you do, you'll find someone along there that's very passionate about the car. They've had it or they restored it, and they are not short of wanting to tell you all about it and everything they've done. So we always find that at a show, and we're picking up on that. And
well, like you said, there's a story with every car,
right?
And you can, if you have enough time at car shows, you can hang out with individual owners and hear those stories.
Exactly. And then probably the biggest thing that gets updated daily is I've scoured Craigslist and eBay Motors for years. It's just always been a hobby of mine. See what's out there.
You're not alone.
Yeah. And so when I'm out there, I just figured I'd start posting them. I wanted to learn a little bit more. It's really odd how I came about this, but I wanted to learn more about how to do online analytics and web analytics. So since I was doing this almost daily, I channeled that onto building my own website and then starting to understand how to use Google Analytics. And it's really evolved from there. So in addition to the daily features, now we have some content where we talk about various auction trends that are happening, my observations on those, as well as things in our garage. So I have my garage mahal where I have tools and stuff. I do a lot of work myself on my cars, so anything I could come up with, like one of the things I talked about was how to heat and cool your garage for not a lot of money, and that seems to be the most popular thing I've had out there so far.
Yeah, real practical stuff, and your commentary on the auction sites is unique in a sense that you don't pull any punches. You tell it like it is. You give your opinion, and that's unusual in the journalistic world. And I think Tell me a little bit about your observations of that. We were talking about Craigslist a little bit earlier. What's happening with Craigslist currently?
Sure. So April 15th, they instituted a new policy where before that point, anybody that was an individual seller could list their car for free. So what you had out there was a lot of noise from companies perhaps posing as individuals and a variety of techniques where they would try to do that to say they were an individual seller, but in fact they weren't. Also, there's just all kinds of scams that everybody's familiar with on there. What I've noticed is that as of April 15th, they instituted this policy where it's $5 a post. So, I've posted a number of cars on there, and one of the tricks you used to do is update the date or something in it so it would always be top.
Refresh it.
Refresh it. Well, that's $5 each time you do that now. So what I've noticed in the last month is it's just a lot of the noise you used to see on Craigslist is gone.
So that was probably their plan, is to sort of weed out scams and sellers of company sellers and things like that. And you're going to tell us how you tell the difference between an individual and a company seller. Is this a good time for that now?
Sure.
That tie into Craigslist? Probably ties into Craigslist more than this is how. Well, go ahead. This is how individuals can tell the difference.
So I have a top 10 list. If you look at Craigslist every day, you tend to spot themes that's going on, and when there's somebody posing as an individual seller. So number 10 is they photograph the car in front of their business, and these are in order of easiest to most obscure. Number 9, the windshield has large numbers in it that you typically see.
Yep.
They try to offer financing or special internet pricing in their ad. That's usually something that I would shy away from.
That's a telltale sign that it might be a deal. It might be a company or some kind.
Right. I've seen a few where they neglect to take out the as-is warranty paper still in the window.
Sure.
Number 6 is it's either no plates on the car, a little bit harder in PA because you don't have the front plate per se, but
that's right.
But if you don't see dealer plates or no plates on the car, particularly in the back, that's a red flag for me. The one I love that was threw me one time a couple months ago was I saw the same background but different vehicles. You start seeing women.
Could be a dealer.
Yeah, could be somebody out there. Number 4, pictures taken inside a professional garage.
Sure.
We all have been there. We know what they look like. And then the top 3 get a little bit more interesting. The third one has tricked me up a number of times, and that's where the pictures have the company's watermark in them. It may be shaded or very subtle, but that you don't notice it at first until 5-10 minutes later. The next one is somewhat subtle. If you're familiar with Craigslist, in the upper right corner there's a number of buttons, the address, the VIN number, other pertinent information. And if somebody's selling multiple cars, there'll be a button that pops up that says more cars by this user. That's a pretty good. That's my number 2 giveaway. And then probably the funnest one we've run into is where somebody has it on there and they have it on they're photographing their car with a nice white background or a totally blacked out area, and it's on a turntable. so most people I know don't have a
turntable or the room for a turntable, let alone a turntable itself.
So those are my top 10 that I've always used.
One that I is a dead giveaway for me is what I call the Armor All treatment. So where the entire car is glossy black, the engine is. You got 150,000 miles, but it's so glossy, shiny black. That means they just doused it with Armor All.
Very true.
Individuals generally don't do that. What's the advantage of buying private party versus deal? Why not look for a dealer sale?
So I think dealers have the place, and some places, if you're not knowledgeable in cars, that's where.
When we say dealers, we're talking about used car lots generally, or whelsalers, not dealerships.
Yep. So from that perspective, if you don't have a lot of knowledge, I think things like Carfax have helped level the playing field, so you can go in with some knowledge of that. But more times than not, what happens at those situations is the history of the car is lost beyond what is shown in the Carfax. As much as Carfax and those other ones show, if there's any other receipts or more detail around it, you may know that the car was serviced on this date, but it doesn't give the story if they don't have the receipts to back it up. Whereas if you're dealing with a private seller, that's where you get the book of receipts. He or she could take you through what's been done to the car, why they did what they did, if they modified it in any way, what kind of preventative measure. And it's really a sign of, to me, as you meet that person, how passionate about the car are they? Is it just an A to B transport, or is it something they truly enjoy?
Yeah, I've met owners who refuse to sell to a particular buyer because they're going to give it to their kid, or they're not going to be a steward of that car as they were, and really cared for it. There are exceptions, however, to the photography rule, or to the how cars are presented on Craigslist. And you actually found a car, and so there's these rare instances where maybe there's not a great photograph or a great description, but maybe it's worth making that call just to see what it's about.
Yeah, so I'll have it on more detail on my site here in the next week or so, but we have a 98 Porsche Boxster that we bought 4 years ago, and we were in the market for a convertible and a nice sports car like that, and had actually looked at a couple which had very nice ads, but when we go to look at the car, disappointed. This particular ad only had a picture of the console where the shifter is. One picture. And the description was maybe 2 sentences. But something about that description just said, I gotta find out more about this car. And when I called the gentleman, it was on the east side of Philly, he actually purchased the car from, it was one of these, like the Kidney Foundation, so somebody donated the car. And he picked the car up. He thought he was going to use it as a shore car. So the first owner had 70,000 miles on the car, just under 70,000. This person that we bought it from only put 40 miles on the car because he thought he was going to take it to the shore, but where he lived, in the row houses and such, he couldn't stand the stick shift. So here we come along, and that's once I saw the car and I came to the car, my wife can tell you that particularly with Porsches, there's a booklet that comes with it. And the holy grail is if that booklet has the stamps in it with the mileage and the date,
serve it. Yeah.
And this car, when I did that combined with the Carfax, I literally almost started shaking because everything down to the wipers and tires on that car had been done at the local Porsche dealers, one of the two. So we had to buy the car right then and there. So don't always let the pictures tell the story. If there's a description there or something seems, always never leave on any stone unturned is what I would say.
That said, we are going to talk about what makes a good photograph and why it's important to really expose the car visually for a good sale. We're also going to talk about BringATrailer. You want to talk? We have a minute or so now before the break.
Sure.
To talk a little bit about some of the auction sites, and we can continue after the break. But
sure.
Tell me a little bit about your observations of BringATrailer and the new Hemmings site coming.
Absolutely. So, BringATrailer, we're huge fans of. I've always admired what Randy Naunenberg, the co-founder's done since he started in 2007. He started it as a community, and then started, not unlike what I'm doing today, is listing cars he feels he would buy. That's the rule of thumb. But about 5 years ago, he switched it to a full-line auction site, and now in April they announced that they're going even more up market. So for years, for 5 years or so, it was $99. They would curate the ad for you, and you would provide the pictures, and then that would be up for 7 days. You could go no reserve or reserve, and they charge a 5% buyer's premium up to a maximum of $5,000.
So $99 plus the 5%.
Yeah, so $99 to the seller. That's what they pay to list.
Okay.
And then the buyer of the car is charged a 5% premium.
Gotcha.
So now what they've offered in mid-April, they've announced premium services. So there's really a 3-tiered system. The classic $99, and now they offer this $349 premium service where they have a network of photographers across the country, in the U.S. only is their disclaimer, and they will come out and photograph the car for you. So that's a nice service if you, like you said, if you're feeling intimidated by how to provide enough photographs that will make the threshold. Because BringATrailer right now, they're averaging just under 50 cars a day that they auction. So that's about 5 times 50, 250. But Randy Nonnenberg stated about a month or so ago, they're getting about 100 requests a day. So they can be, they are very particular now. They have that luxury to really cull. So it's important for people to be able to provide photographs that can sell.
I think that was the appeal, and that's why it's grown. I think they probably gave guidelines for photographs from the very start, and they were just quality pictures, even though they were taken by the seller themselves.
That's correct.
They were noticeably better than what you'd see on Craigslist or eBay or anything else from an individual standpoint.
Exactly.
All right, we are back on CarSmarts Radio talking with GuysWithRidescom on BringATrailer and what's happening with Hemmings as well.
Yeah, so one clarification before the break on that new Plus service, that $349 gets you in contact with a photographer, but as we understand it, that individual photographer does charge you above and beyond that. Then on top of that, they have a white glove service that they don't list the price, but they will handle everything, and that is for very premium high-end cars. They started with a 300 SL Gullwing about a month ago that went for over $1 million, and then most recently they've had a couple of Dino Ferraris on there that have.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, so.
Nice.
So then, BringATrailer's gone pretty much unchecked as an auction house online for about the last 5 years, and it was only a matter of time before somebody started wanting to get in on the action. And it's interesting. I think everybody knows. Anybody that's a collector, car collector, knows Hemmings, right?
Right. Old time.
Old time. I mean, I can remember years ago getting the book every month. That was. Years ago, I had a 68 Buick Electra that I was restoring, and then a 64 Falcon Futura convertible. So when that book came in, I was looking for parts and actually using that as a pricing reference to see where the car values were. Well, as we all know with the internet, it's probably no secret, just like all other print media is getting the pressure from the competition in the internet. And that combined, I think, with Hemmings, they call themselves the Hemmings Nation. I think that's an aging population that maybe isn't as growing as much as they had hoped. So I commend them for taking a look at how to go after maybe some market share that BringATrailer's been taking from them. So in April, they announced this new Hemmings Auctions site. And last week, they've teased the details. They said it's going to come out this summer. So as of yesterday, it's going to be any day now. And the way they feel about it is they're going to provide a unparalleled customer service. So they want to leverage their customer service group to provide what they feel is a premium service over perhaps what BringATrailer is providing today. The other part of it is they did come out and say they will curate the cars that will be on there, and they will work closely with the seller on what the price should be. So much like BringATrailer works, they will coach hard on what the reserve price will be. So we all know, right? People are out there that they think their car, what they think their car is worth and what it truly is are two different things. So they need to curate through that, and so they plan to do that much like the BringATrailer model. What I thought was interesting is they stated last week that they will offer competitive pricing. All right, so what could that be? If you've ever done gaming theory on competitive gaming, you wonder, do they consider themselves, because are they sitting there saying we're Hemmings? So does that mean we can charge what the brick and mortar auctions charge for, say, a buyer's premium of 10%, or do they meet BringATrailer's 5%, or do they feel they're somewhere in between? So, or do they come right out and say, we're gonna, be more valuable? Since they came out and said competitive, that to me signals they're not going to be lower than BringATrailer. Okay. But that's my opinion. We'll have to see if that plays out.
Well, they've been a little slow to get into the internet world, although they have some great resources and a newsletter and all that stuff.
Right.
But it is this sort of the old the old school go-to, the old Bible of car trading. And I told you I was with a collector who's 80 years old, and he still reads Hemmings and Motor News. So there's still a market, but like you said, it's probably shrinking, and they're just looking for ways to compete. And I think competition breeds greatness, so we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, we're really interested to see how that plays out.
So you have some really good pointers on photographing cars. If you want to sell your car, that doesn't have to be a collector car, it could be any car, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's some key points that people should heed when they're doing that.
Yeah, that's we posted on our website. It was around Christmas time, end of last year. So we came up with the acronym, excuse me, Noel.
Noel.
N-O-L-E-L, and so the four letters. What do they stand for? Well, the N stands for natural, and then you need to take your pictures of your car in a natural setting. And you heard me describe it earlier, the hero shot.
Some of us, that would be the shop. It would be up on jack stands.
Which
depends on the car.
That's right. Some people, and if it's a barn find, then maybe that makes sense. Other than the lighting.
Yeah, get a little mouse in there.
But last week, if you saw our Wagon Wednesday feature, there was a Studebaker, 61 Studebaker Lark, and that was a cool car because he had a picture of his car at the car show. So that to me is a hero shot where, oh yeah, I want to show the car. It's cool. I can, that's where I want to take it. Another one I thought was really cool. I didn't use the truck, but it was a drag racing truck I saw a week or so ago, and he actually had it on the staging lane at launch. Awesome shot. Somebody up in the stands took it, so you see the slicks are wrinkled.
So he can't use never abuse, never race.
The funny thing was, I felt at first I was looking at the vehicle, and but he had his front plates on it. So it's like he probably wants to reconsider that. But that gives you the idea. Make the prospective owner feel like that could be them in the car or the truck. So that's N. O, outdoors. All right, so short of the barn find or a car that's just been sitting in there for years, if you can get the car outside, by all means, get it to someplace neutral. And by that I mean don't pull it out of the garage. If it's drivable, take it to an outdoor setting, a neutral setting. People don't want to, as I was saying earlier, people don't want to picture themselves in the car in your driveway or in your garage. They want to be in a park or some other nice area where they might want to drive for a picnic, let's say, or
scenic,
yeah. Something neutral and scenic but neutral.
Some ducks in the background.
Exactly, but not too. But there's a balance there. We were looking at a picture not too long ago on BringATrailer. Beautiful car. I can't remember what it was, but he pictured at a boat, a dock area. So while it was a stunning picture at the end of the dock of this car, your eye gravitates to all the ships and the names of the boats on the transoms. Too much. Too
busy.
Right. So careful with that one. Then we move on to E. Early or evening. So my wife Nancy always says the golden hour. You never want to take, like, already, even though it's 11:30 on a beautiful day. If you start taking pictures now, particularly if your car is shiny, without any kind of filtering, and that's for the pros,
right?
Which they wouldn't even film now. There's too much. It's just too hazy for it to happen, and you'll have
glare.
The overexposure is just too much.
Yes.
So if you're an early birds like us, you want to do that 1 hour after sunrise, or if you're more in the later, you want to do 1 hour before sunset. That's when the light is best, and you can really take advantage of it, and you'll be amazed at the pictures. If you absolutely have to do a day like today, midday, you want to pick a cloudy day.
Yep.
So this is just too much today.
Too much sun today.
Too much sun.
We're sick of it.
And
it's the first time we've seen sun in a week.
I know. We're enjoying it here, so we're going to take advantage of that today.
No pictures today, but it's been really nice. You got to get out there. It's a good day for car shows.
That's right. But if you do have to take it, always have always on those few pictures you do have to take where the sun is there.
Mm-hmm.
Try to do it in a way that the sun's behind you, and at an angle that your shade, depending on the time of day, be cognizant of. You're basically a sundial in those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have the car in a different angle relative to where your sundial is, and take the picture that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's very important. And it's funny how people will put the car in one spot and then move around the car. What you want to do in that situation is don't be afraid to move the car and use that same spot as your vantage point.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good tip. Yeah.
Yep.
Didn't think that. I usually do the walk around thing.
Yeah. So you'll be amazed at how different the pictures look.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. Cloudy days much better. It softens the picture. It makes the car actually pop better. You see the lines.
Yeah.
In a shady, believe it or not. I mean, I take pictures at car shows all the time, and I get home and I look at them and I'm like, oh, like the chrome is, there's a big glare of chrome.
Yeah. We had the advantage a couple of years ago that Boxster I mentioned that a famous car photographer, Michael Allen Ross, was taking the picture of our car. He made us get up at 5 a.m. and they were done with the shoot, I think, by 6:30. It was because it was where we were at was going to be a clear day.
Is your profile picture? Did he take that picture?
No, that was my wife Nancy.
Really good picture. It really is. I mean, it's got a. I don't know if that's why I got so many hits on Instagram yesterday. It's a quality shot.
Well, thank you, but she's a stunning photographer.
Right.
Finally, so we've covered N, natural, O, outdoors. E is early or evening. Finally, low. What does that mean? So if you take most of your shots down low at the eye level of the car or even lower, it does two things for you. It makes the car appear larger, and then it portrays a sense of motion, particularly from the rear three quarters.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see, I tend to, the pictures I post on the site that are other cars have taken, other people have taken, are actually at rear three-quarter view, because it really gives you that sense that a car is a thing of movement, and you want to portray that in the ad. So those four things, if you follow those rules, you'll see on the site, I have a picture of the Boxster I've mentioned, where I'm in front of Mount Rushmore. We just had come out of one of the tunnels, the one-lane tunnels, if you've ever gone through there. And I took that with just my iPhone 5S at the time.
Right.
So you don't need, if you follow those rules, it was early morning, it was an outdoor shot, the light was right, it's just a great, and I was down low, it's just a great shot without a fancy camera. And
aside from all these great tips about quality, I would say quantity is important, especially for collectors and guys who are looking for special interest cars. I always tell the story that I bought a truck in Alaska based on a series of photographs, like 100 photographs.
Wow.
And I had somebody check it out after I had bid on it. But the photographs were so good. Every corner, every inch of that car was covered in a photograph.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And people only take 4 or 5 photographs. It's not like the old days,
right.
folks, where you're not spending money on film. My wife Nancy, who you like the photograph of, she said you'll watch her, and she'll literally take hundreds of photos and keep 2.
Yeah, digital's amazing. Well, when we come back, more with Rudy and GuysWithRidescom. We'll get his perspective on the new phase of the car enthusiast world, punctuated by a nationwide event called Radwood. Welcome back to CarSmarts Radio. My name's Steve Saffier with Rudy Samsel of GuysWithRidescom. What's going on with the younger crowd? You went to a Radwood event recently, and you made some really interesting and insightful observations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was born in October of 1964. So I like to say that I'm one of the last baby boomers born. So while in the car world, that being one of the last is good. It's interesting that the span of baby boomers, we're at the tail end of it. So while baby boomers that started out at the early part of it were into muscle cars and got to see them when they were new, if you think about it, I turned 16 in 1980. What was going on back then? If you think gas had spiked because some of the political situations going on. Gas went from, I think, about 70 cents a gallon to about $1.20 just as I was getting my license, which was a big deal. I think you can remember, you're about the same age.
Right. We are.
And so my perspective on cars starting out then were if I was going to buy a used car, I was thinking about this the other day. Also, not only was gas going up, but there was really the focus on leaded gas. You couldn't buy really good premium anymore. So if you had an older muscle car, there were valve issues. They really hadn't figured out what to do, and just the bad mileage. And then coming from Western New York, there weren't that many around that were usable at that point. So,
right.
so my choice of used cars back then. It was funny, a lot of people would come down to PA because you didn't use the road salt as much. But I was picking used cars in the height of the Malaise era.
Yeah.
And ergo that 74 Ventura. So I never, even though I enjoy cars, I enjoy muscle cars and the luxury cars, personal luxury cars, because my parents had. And I spent the 70s riding around, bouncing around in the backseat of not one but two International Scouts.
Oh, wow.
So this whole trend of Broncos and International Scouts and Blazers going through the roof, I get it, because that's what I grew up with.
Sure.
And now, so this Radwood thing comes up. And, I've been going to Carlisle, going to the auctions, you go to any car show, and I feel like I'm one of the younger people there. I go to Radwood a couple weeks ago, which was held at New Jersey Motorsports Park as part of HooptyCon, which that alone is it's a pretty cool event. They have a race, the Lemons race, if you've heard of this, where you buy the car for $500, and it's I'm going to post some content on it. There's some pretty funny cars out there. It's a cool event. But then 2 years ago. Several podcast hosts, mainly the guys at a podcast called Driving While Awesome, they came up with this idea of having it's not just a car show, but it's a lifestyle celebration of the 80s and 90s. So they held this 2 weeks ago at Jersey Motorsports Park. They called it Radwood East, and it's just growing by leaps and bounds. Jalopnik picked up on it, if you've gone to that website. And it's almost contagious. So myself and a friend go, and right away all of a sudden I feel like I'm one of the oldest guys there, and that's okay because now I'm looking around, and the cars are from January 1st, 1980, so I was 15 at that time,
right,
to December 31st, 1999. So that was when I was 35. So that's quite a span if you think about, that's really in my core group. So as I'm walking around this place, I see 4 cars I bought brand new. And it brings back some memories of that. And then you would appreciate the Haggerty is tapping into this, Haggerty Insurance, but they actually had a Grand National there that their new rideshare program. You could rent the car, but that was a very nice Grand National there. And it was a slick top. It didn't have a T-top. So
right, hard top, yep.
Yeah.
But you also saw like daily driver type stuff, not just show
and
cars.
that's exactly. They say it's a Concours type event, but this is the best part. You show what you drive, and so there were cars in all kinds of. In some cases, they were used. They're just used cars, very old used cars. So they don't take themselves too seriously, and it was just very cool to see millennials and Gen Xers into the car hobby. And some of them had, and the gamut ran domestic to foreign. A fair amount of BMWs there, a cool Citroën.
Right.
And what's interesting now is the EPA has a 25-year rule, and so what does that mean? A car when it hits 25. If it was not imported here originally by a manufacturer, it's now exempt. So you don't have to go through all of the federalization things. So there's a huge subculture, if you will, where you're seeing these cars, particularly Japanese ones. So there was an Skylines. There were 2 or 3 Skylines there. There was an AutoZam. They called it an AutoZam, which has gull-wing doors, but it was a Kai car. If you remember, Japanese had a KEI, and those are 1-liter cars, which they, for crash reasons, they never think to bring here. but they were, when the Japanese market was really in their game in the 90s, a lot of these really cool cars are coming in. Somebody had I believe it's a Nissan Serra with a complete glass top.
Right.
Stunning car. So it was people running around with mullet wigs on, some
right,
leotards.
Right. It's really, like you said, they don't take it too seriously. It's actually a fun event. And so when you and I go to classic car shows, we're the youngest guys there, and the owners are sitting by their cars, and we meet them and everything. And then you go to tuner shows, and you feel like grandpa.
Exactly.
And they speak a different language completely. I'm not even sure they're listening. Is anybody listening to this thing on? Any tuners, please get in touch with me. I'm trying to get you on the air. And then, so this is like the middle ground. This is our bailiwick. This is our set of cars. So we get asked all the time in this cyclone and typhoon world, bring your trucks, because that's the period of time.
Yeah. And the thing that's cool about it is, let's call it what it is. They were making some good cars then.
Mm-hmm.
By the mid 80s, getting into the let's say I think it was 82 when Ford came back out with the Mustang GT, and the Fox body started growing from that.
That's right.
Then they were starting to get horsepower back. The Corvette came back out with a convertible. So they were making cars safer, right? Mid 80s is when ABS started coming on cars and airbags. They were getting better with rust proofing. Not perfect, but
that's when rear brake lights, that extra brake light.
That's right, 86.
Mid-80s,
that's right. Yep. Yep. So
C4 came out.
That's
84,
right? That's right. I love the stories you guys talk about that. And so you're looking at good cars that are fun to drive and comfortable to drive.
And they're almost on the cusp of being collectible. Like you look at old films you see footage from cars driving down the streets in the 40s and 50s, and you go, every single one of those cars is classic now.
Right.
And I think some of these cars, not obviously there's collectible ones like we have, but just your standard sort of Ford Granada or whatever, I don't know, that's earlier, but mid 80s, mid 90s cars are going to be in 10 or 20 years collectible.
It was fascinating because I have a video clip of it. I've got to post it, and I will. But there was everybody remembers the K cars, right?
Oh, that's right.
There was a whole contingent that came in.
Oh, wow.
So it must have been the K car club.
Right.
And it was cool because if you remember how many variants Lee Iacocca came out with that car.
That's right.
From the minivan, there was a turbo minivan there, to a couple of the Daytonas, if you remember those.
Convertible, they had a convertible one.
Convertible one, yep. And then somebody even had a Shelby, the Dodge Rampage Shelby, which I believe they only made 83, 84,
right.
The little pickup, the Ute.
Yeah, and the Yugo came out.
Yeah, surprisingly, no one had one there.
Oh, really?
So I don't know if they maybe.
All right. Interesting. Well, when we come back, we're going to do the hot lap with Rudy. I'm sure he's familiar with that as a loyal listener. And aren't you curious about what cars he's owned? I am. And what's in his garage now? We know about the Porsche. We'll see what else he's got going on there. Back with Rudys Samsel of GuysWithRidescom. Great website. Hope you get the chance to get on there. You always find great ads on Craigslist, and you post those and you talk about those. You have themed days like what is it? Truck Thursday. Wagon Wednesday.
Wagon Wednesday. So we do Malaise Monday.
Malaise Monday.
And
what is that?
So that's anything from 72 to 1984. That's what's considered the height of the Malaise era.
Yes.
So then we moved on to Trucking Tuesday, Wagon Wednesday.
Always love that.
Yeah, and it's hugely popular.
Wagons.
Yeah. And then Topless Thursday. Yeah. So
convertibles.
It's all convertibles or T-tops. And then we moved to 4x Friday. That one's fun. And in fact, yesterday was no doubt no different. It was the most popular one we've had on Instagram.
Yeah, talk about that.
So the Jeep peeps were all in attendance yesterday. I featured 3 trucks that with the new Jeep Gladiator, the hugely popular Gladiator, and all the press that's been getting. I said, okay, I'm going to look for an original Gladiator, the J10 or J20 that.
Did they call it Gladiator back then?
Yeah,
they did.
So if memory serves me right, they made the Gladiator that style Jeep truck from 62 to 88, and they did rename it. I think Chrysler renamed it or
Right.
AMC at some point to the J10 and the J20, kind of following that Chevrolet theme. But originally it was known as the Gladiator pickup. I'm sure somebody out there knows exactly when that flipped. And then I found that, and if you remember, so in the Jeep world, the Cherokee, the XJ, was hugely popular. They came out with that in '84, and there's a huge following of those Jeeps in their own right. They made the MJ, which is the pickup, the Comanche pickup version of that, which you cannot, they're very rare to find. So I was able to find a silver one yesterday. I think that resonated with a lot of people.
I love them. I love Comanches. They're just so basic, and so the lines are just clean. Just like you look up pickup truck in the dictionary and you see a picture of a Comanche.
And the whole,
simple.
Rudy talking now, the whole truck industry and where they've gone with trucks now is just, they're huge. I just don't understand it, and particularly when most people are buying trucks that don't really need a truck. It's
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the hot lap with Rudy from GuysWithRidescom. Have I said that website enough? I think 7 is the magic number, but I think I said 15. All right, so car. Well, you know your first car. What was the car you took your driving test in?
So it was that same car.
Oh, okay, good.
So that was funny story about that. I went for my driving test, and it was pretty typical. I went days after I got my permit, and so it was pretty common back then that you'd fail, particularly if you were a guy.
Right.
So where I grew up outside of Buffalo, I went to Orchard Park, which the home of the Bills. That was one place where you could take your driver's license test. So I go there, picked up the gentleman to do the test, and I forget why I failed. So a couple days later, it comes in the snail mail, and right away I put it back in. But now I'm smart. I think I'm going to go to the place 10 miles east in East Aurora. I'll go to that location and maybe get somebody new. The same guy won't recognize me. So I wait the 2 weeks. I show up, and it's the same guy. So, but I guess the second time was the charm. He did pass me, and I've had a license ever since.
Car you most regret selling, if any?
I was thinking about this.
The one that got away.
The one, it was my 2003 Infiniti G35. I bought that new, and thoroughly enjoyed the car. Got a lot of tickets with it because it's really a 350ZX under the hood. They were quick. And almost lost my license twice with it. Because of reasons I won't go into.
That's the next question.
Yeah. So I traded that in with I sold it privately with 180,000 miles, and it still looked immaculate. That's the way I am with cars. But fuel was going to about 2012 was pushing $5 a gallon. I had a long commute. So I bought a Honda CRZ. So it was the 2-seat hybrid. It was
tiny little thing.
Tiny little thing.
Yeah.
I because of the poor visibility of it, I had like 3 minor fender benders within 3 months, and then it was for whatever reason, even though it was a hybrid and slow, that was more of a police magnet than my G35.
Interesting.
So
it is a unique looking car. I guess it gets people's attention.
It is, and just between the comfort and whatnot, I mean, it got great gas mileage, but everything else about it, I just regretted selling the G35.
Yeah. Got about 90 seconds. So first ticket?
First ticket was in a Volkswagen Beetle coming back I went from RIT back home in Buffalo when I was going for my undergrad. And it was February, brutally cold, so everybody knows how air-cooled Beetles are.
That's right.
So I actually was going through a town called Perry, New York, which is about an 8-mile stretch, 30 miles an hour, known for giving tickets. And I just was trying to keep the speed up to keep my heat going.
Right.
And I got stopped. So I basically went in front of the judge, and I think I was doing 45 and a 30. Pleaded my case to the judge, and he just looked at me, shook his head, and said, okay, how about a faulty tire?
Money, no object. What's your dream car?
It would have to be a mid-60s C2.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a 67 Corvette, but not a big block. I would prefer a small block with a stick, that would I could,
Well, that is big ticket item.
big ticket
now.
item. Yeah.
What's in your garage other than the Boxster?
So the Boxster, besides the Boxster, we have a 2006 Porsche Cayenne S, which is a lot of fun and the first generation Cayennes are incredibly capable off-road. This one has the combination of the 4.5 liter V8 with the rare air suspension that's usually only found on the turbo. So when I picked this up, it was a find that I plan to keep. And we impressed a number of Wrangler owners last year at a Father's Day run at Roush Creek. We took it on the Green Trail, which if you've ever been there is more than I wanted to do. But
This is an off-road.
This is an off-road thing. About a couple hours from here, and I think we got a lot of raised eyebrows when we showed up, and we managed to hold our own for a little while, but it was hurting us more than the truck. So we left a little early.
Fantastic. Rudy, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Absolutely fantastic show. GuysWithRidescom. Please go to his website. You're also on Instagram, Facebook, all the rest.
At GuysWithRides on